Welcome to the new Ford Puma, or should we say the slightly updated and now with an electric motor version Ford Puma, because the Puma is now gone totally electric. It's actually called Gen-E, and in terms of sales, it has been a massive success for Ford. The best-selling car in the UK in 2023, they sold almost 50,000 units. In Ireland last year, we sold over 1,700. And filming in the middle of November, current sales are well over 1,600. Not comparable scales, I will agree with you, but still a really popular segment of car. And a very important car to Ford for a load of reasons. There's been the noise of the Capri, there's been the Explorer this year, there's been the announcement literally a week ago of job cuts in Ford in Europe and the UK due to declining sales of EVs. So this is a car Ford really need to sell. And what would Henry Ford himself say? Not any colour as long as it's black. You can have yellow. You can even have this beautiful deep red. What I love about this vehicle straight away is it's something that Ford don't have to explain. They don't have to explain a name. They don't have to explain the cute face, because people are on board with the Puma. It's a car that is no doubt loved by the general public. So there's some slight tweaks for aerodynamics made to this over the ICE version, because this is on the BE2 platform, which is still shared with stuff like the Courier and the ICE version of the Puma. But there are still some tweaks made for this EV version. So totally closed front nose, still got the cute little frog eyes over the front. This is electric yellow. There's two different colours that you can get exclusively in the electric version of the Puma. Lengthwise, 4 to 14 millimeters. We have 17, 18 and 19 wheel options. These are the 17s. Actually, they fill the car just fine. You're going to have more comfort in a 17 as well, and the tyres will cost less. So do me a favour, don't get the 19s. Going along the side of it, then we have a little black insert on the lower part here, body coloured mirror housing. This version has a glass roof that does open. It's an optional extra, but basically there's two different trims versions. So you've got Gen-E and then you have Premium. But even the standard car is very well spec'd. If you want things like blind spot, you do need a safety pack. So you can have a little look and see if the extra bits are worth it in your opinion. So then it slopes down into a nice boot spoiler and something on the back that hasn't happened in a production Ford before. And that would be the white lettering in Puma. So yeah, that hasn't happened before. Obviously the Ford badge is still blue. I think it would be blasphemy if you touched that, so they wouldn't be necessarily allowed. We have a wiper. Again, a lot of body colour housing going on in the lower part, and certain trims will have an electric boot. This version has a manual. But the boot is actually one of the biggest USPs when it comes to this Puma. If you ever remember the Mega Box from Ford, which sounded like something you could get in a chipper on a Wednesday, it was actually a clever use of a boot. Well, it's got even better in the Puma. Essentially what that means is you now have a 574 litre boot, 145 are down to the Gigabox, which is essentially almost a false floor, which can be drained. You can put a house plant into it, you can put a lot of chocolates into it if you wanted to run a competition to see how many sweets you could fit. Or just like you could wash a small child down there, and it's quite impressive. And the fact that you can drain it is even more impressive. So whether it's football boots from training that you don't want to wreck the inside of your car with, you can just shove anything mucky or dirty in there and worry about it later. You can literally take a hose and use it. I mean, if you were a vet, you could probably put livestock in here and wash it down afterwards. I'm not sure if the Puma is your typical vet mode of transport, but it's just clever. As Jeremy Clarkson said a couple of years ago, that Mega Box is like an actual human with an actual life designed it, which I thought was pretty clever. So 12-volt charging socket, and you get a light, and you're talking big, decent numbers for a relatively small car if you drop these rear seats, which are easy to do with just the buttons on top of the rear bench. So complemented by a flexible parcel shelf, which again can just mold around bikes and buggies and stuff. It is a car that if you had certainly one small child, you'd get away with it. Two small children with their bigger seats might be pushing it, but the boot is trying its best. You can, of course, just take this permanently out, and then you have access to a very deep Gigabox at all times. So well done, Ford. Worth just reminding you once again that this is not a ground-up EV, but Ford have still managed to pretty much put a flat floor for rear passengers. And in a smaller car, that's really important. It just means you're a little bit less claustrophobic. I've deliberately left these seats fairly far back. In fact, the passenger one is probably as far back as it goes. And I'm not saying I'm comfortable, but there's space for your knees. They've cutouts on the back. So if you do have adjustability in your passenger and front driver's seat, people back here will obviously be extra comfortable. But as you know, a tall passenger in the front would have their seating configuration, it's actually not bad. Something that is very cool is the blinds that opens here. So you get kind of a split T-bar on the roof, and then you have separate glass areas for front and rear passengers. And there's no armrest, but again, you wouldn't really expect in this segment of car. However, there's 2 USB-C charging ports and a 12 volt. So plenty of device charging can go on in the back of the Puma. So the latest Ford Sync 4 software is used in this car. That means you get Alexa, and they've built on the existing infotainment system that they had and made it slightly better. What's interesting is the driver's screen is actually ever so slightly bigger than the central one. So you're still talking over 12 inches for both of them. They've tweaked the buttons, so the physical buttons for climate are now gone. You're getting climate control behind a screen, but the screen always, the tab for climate always stays down the bottom. So you literally just touch a button and it's easy to access it. And yeah, it's really, I mean, it's not something that you should lose sleep over. I think it's quite decent. There's a charging plate here, a bit of space. They've also raised this console up. So now, like a ground-up EV, essentially, you would get extra space where the transmission tunnel should be. So Ford haven't just taken an iced Puma and said, right, we're going to put a motor into it, and that's it. So I like that they've done those little things to kind of make the best of what they can with what's already existing. Should also say that after all the alliances with Volkswagen for some of the other vehicles, this is just a Ford vehicle. So the steering wheel feels totally Ford. There's no signs of VW anywhere. It's square at the top, square at the bottom. B&O sound system if you go for higher spec versions right across the top of the dashboard, and it's kind of more cocooned around you than ever before. So it's a good use of space in what is a smaller car. The armrest now also slides for you, and there's a little bit of storage for devices also in here to keep them out of the way. Pity that the angle screen that is in the Explorer and the Capri doesn't make its way into this, because that's actually quite a little cool feature where you can lock things away out of prying eyes here. The seats are comfortable. Yeah, it doesn't feel cheap. It feels nicely put together. So some of the technical details then. Front wheel drive, 165 brake horsepower, 44 kilowatt hour battery. Now Ford do have other powertrains available to them. So I wonder, will we see a full-on ST version of the Puma in electric down the road? Let's see how sales go, I suppose, to begin with. A big rival to this car is going to be the Kia EV3, which is obviously a model we've had recently on the channel, and a brand new model from Kia. But this is kind of a proven, tried and tested format with Ford. As I said, the best-selling car in the UK. That didn't happen just magically last year, so obviously it's an engaged car. You can tow up to 750 kilos, brake, not a huge amount, but again, for the size of the car, it's not too bad. And the frunk, which again, most cars of this size do not have, can obviously take your Type 2 cable, but it can also take the detachable tow bar if you want to bring that around with you also. So, kind of handy. Range then, little under 400 kilometers if you're doing a mix of driving, over 500 kilometers they say if you're doing city driving, and you'll be able to charge it at a speed of 100 kilowatt, up to 100 kilowatt I should say. That depends on quite a few things: outside temperature, battery temperature, and where your state of charge is for your charging curve. But you should get over 100 kilometers in less than 10 minutes into the battery if you are using one of those faster chargers. So a clever little car, no doubt about it. As I said, something that has been proven in the last couple of years from Ford in terms of how much people like this car. A lot of times when I'm getting first looks at cars, we have no idea of price, but I can confirm that including all the grants and relief in Ireland, you can get the entry-level Gen-E from just under €33,000 and the premium version from just under €36,000. And you can expect delivery of the car into your house or driveway or wherever else you park it into early 2025. So let me know what you think. Have you had a Puma in the past? Would you now go electric if you were going for a new version of it? Comment down below, And as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one.